A week after the George Floyd murder, no other African president has come out, and a lot of people were wondering why. And one of the big reasons is because Africa is, there is a lot of, I don't even know how to put this, like, I'm not even going to be polite about it, but there is a lot of police brutality in Africa. And, the police, that's why they all have that police name. It's a uniform name. It's because it's a copy paste idea where they basically all have the same spirit and the same kind of aggressive brutality. And here on the African continent, a lot of our brothers and sisters, especially those, from less privileged backgrounds who are living in the slums, suffer from, extrajudicial killings, police brutality, intimidation from the police, and regular abuse from the police, having to bribe the police, etc., etc. So it's something that, how can a president come out and speak against George Floyd, as much as messed up as it is, when in their own country that same day, or in the last week, say the same atrocities have been committed on their own people, black on black crime. And that's like one of the major reasons why they don't speak out, because their countries are in a mess, and there's this whole thing of big brother protecting each other. And that brings me to the second point. A lot of these, a lot of our presidents are brotherhood. They got in there, without really understanding the full scope of their job description. They have done major rituals. They have, signed their lives over to, the bloodlines that run this world. And literally, if you read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, it talks a lot about how they always have something on our African presidents. Either they dig and they get a secret either about a mistress, a corruption deal, etc., etc., or they initiate you into the brotherhood where it's blood sacrifices. The higher you go, the more people you have to take out. So those are the other ways. Or they send you traps, bait and trap, and they keep that for a rainy day. So they'll send you prostitutes, they'll send you, they'll catch you in corrupt deals, receiving gifts, etc., etc. So the day you refuse to, toe the line, they start on a, disinformation campaign. So, a lot of our presidents aren't their own men. They can't even speak out against, the abuse of their own citizens in places like China. And a lot of them are also funded by the divided states. And you saw what happened with Zimbabwe, where the US actually thought, there were some protests in Zimbabwe. I think they were actually totally unrelated to the George Floyd to the George Floyd protests. But, Trump went ahead and named Zimbabwe as an enemy of the state, or an adversary. And, and Zimbabwe had to literally come and say, and summon them and be like, we're not your enemy, we're not your adversary, because they know the financial implications that come with having some of these enemies. And this is the problem of us being in their matrix, and also having people who don't fully understand their history. They don't fully understand who we were as a spiritual people. Most of them are there, being presidents because, the family dictates it, society put them there because of money, because of maybe very superficial ambitions. But very few are chosen, and the chosen are seriously trapped. They've been diseased, they've been made weak, and they are facing crazy battles because they are still trying to follow the God of the Mzungu instead of, bowing to the God of our ancestors, who has given them that place to begin with. And so when you see the silence of our presidents, is because they're committing the same crimes on their own people, which black on black is even worse. They're part of these secret society brotherhoods, and Africa has borrowed so much money to, from the divided states and other nations. And they say, the hand that feeds you owns you. You are a slave to the person you owe money to, and that's where we find ourselves. But we have seen Africans across the continent, expressing their complete, outrage on social media, on Twitter, etc. They've used what they had to express their solidarity with our African American brothers and sisters, and they've done the necessary things that they could online, and many were afraid to go onto the streets. I heard there was intimidation in places like Ghana, where the police warned the citizenry against, taking to the streets, because they also don't want the Americans to look bad. But just shows you we are not our own people anywhere on this planet, and it's about time that we start to change that. We are the generation that will make a difference. We have no choice, because even if we were avoiding the war and going like this, the war has literally been brought to our doorstep. We cannot ignore it. We cannot turn away from it. We must face it head on, because that's what the seasons and the times call for. But for us as an African people on the continent, we should now become aware that our presidents, if they can't even protect, if they can't even protest our brothers and sisters being killed in another country, we've seen the EU respond, we've seen all these people, then what about them protecting or even speaking out against the discrimination that happens on their own people on our own soil? It might just be about that time that we start electing leaders that have more of a backbone than these ones have shown. Anyway.